Hello there. I'm MapleDungeons, and today I'm going to be introducing you to Chivalry Medieval Warfare. Chivalry, as per its name, is a medieval combat game. It plays quite like a first-person multiplayer shooter, but in this case, you're actually a soldier in medieval times. The combat system in place in Chivalry is simple and elegant. You have to aim all your blows, which you have 3 of, and then aim and time your blocks as well. In terms of melee, you generally have these 3 swings. You have your horizontal swing, which will be used by left-clicking. You have your overhead swing, which you'll do by swinging your mouse wheel down. And then you have a stab, which you'll do by swinging your mouse wheel up. Each has its situational use, and can be comboed together to get a nice flow of attacks going. I believe the maximum is 3 attacks in a row in this smooth fashion. The combat in general is just fun and satisfying, and I can't really complain about that side of the game. The ranged combat, on the other hand, is another part of the game, and to get to the ranged combat, you can customize certain classes to have offhands which they'll be able to throw, such as knives and things. But there is a full class that is dedicated to ranged combat. The whole archer class specializes in it, and to be honest, I don't find that the ranged combat is anywhere near as good as melee. I am not really a first-person shooter kind of guy, which might be the main reason why I don't really like the archer combat. I don't really like the ranged combat anyway. I just focus on the melee most of the time. Generally, I try archer for a couple minutes, fail, get tired of it, and then just pull out some fists and go punch people. So it might just be my aversion to first-person shooters and me being pretty terrible at them. But I hear just pretty much everyone complaining about archers, and it's not really the best part of the game. I suppose to add something strategically, you have to back up your archers, the archers have to back you up. So if you're actually playing in an organized way, I can see the appeal of the archer, although it is not the most fun thing to play from my personal experience. All combat in Chivalry, even on the range side, is extremely brutal. You'll be tearing off limbs, decapitating heads of your enemies, and watching blood flow as you shoot, stab, and swing. It's also pretty skillful depending on what you play. It involves parrying swings at the right time, waiting for opponents, and hitting them in the right places of their bodies. There is definitely an aspect of difficulty to it, although the only evidence I really can present to that is my own lack of skill at it, which doesn't really mean anything, as I am not in any way a skilled player of any sort. As I may have mentioned, the game has 4 classes. I already mentioned the archer, which is the ranged class. And then after that we have the knight, which is a class that wears heavy armor, making them slow, but also harder to kill because they are wearing that full set of armor, and you'll need to strike them in the right place. Then we have the man-at-arms, which is the light armored guy, which is light and fast, and able to dodge around. And then we have the Vanguard, which is the last class, and specializes in long-reaching melee weapons, like the halberd and the spear, which can be extremely effective. Chivalry is a pretty good-looking game. Can't really show you the full extent of the game's graphics because my computer is simply not the greatest, and it is a pretty taxing game, so in order to get anywhere near a good frame rate when recording, I really need to drop my graphical settings down in the game. And I'm not going to be able to show you the full extent of it, so you're going to have to go somewhere else for that. But I'm telling you, it is quite aesthetically pleasing, and even without the full game settings, the game is pretty impressive in that sense, and it has this nice realistic style. Speaking of that realism, the game has a reasonable amount of it. The aiming system adds to the realism, as well as all the heads dropping and bodies falling apart. There is some gamey aspects to it, But there's no auto-aim involved here, and there's no any of that. There's also no historical accuracy to it, but that doesn't really matter in this sense. It's a fantasy world, but the combat aspect of it is that of a medieval time. While the game looks pretty good, it also sounds pretty great. I quite enjoy the music as it goes well with the theme of the game, and the sound effects represent the environment quite well, such as just birds chirping, rivers flowing, stuff like that. And there's quite a bit of yelling and some dialogue from soldiers. Oftentimes this is cheesy, but otherwise it's pretty solid. The game does have a little bit of a progression system with some weapon unlocks and armor unlocks, but the playing field is pretty even, and even your basic weapons will do perfectly fine for killing, so you don't really need to worry about that huge amount of imbalance, and that part should be perfectly fine. Each class generally has 3 main weapons to start with, to choose from, and then a couple of offhand weapons and a couple of special items like pots of oil or shields. Generally, the special items can be unlocked. Different special items, different shields, different things like that. And those are not the main part of the game, so you don't have to worry about it too much. The game has a few different game modes. There is the Team Deathmatch, which is pretty basic, and then the King of the Hill, which as well is pretty basic. And there's the Free-for-all mode, which can be really fun. The most interesting mode, however, is the Team Objective mode. It's a multi-stage thing where you move on to the next part of the map after one objective is completed. Generally in 3 parts. While the other team tries to stop it, the objectives range from pushing a battering ram to a door and then battering the door down, to killing off a whole village of peasants. In a chivalrous way, of course. It's all really quite cool, although when it comes down to it, Chivalry is about killing. If you're looking for deep tactical gameplay, it might not be the place to go. Chivalry isn't perfect, it has some little bugs here and there. 2 real ones I've noticed, the first one being just the camera, which will often mess up. I sense it mostly happening when you're grouped up with a bunch of other soldiers, and since that shouldn't happen too much anyway, it's not a huge deal. The other bug I've seen is the game sometimes just not saving your settings. You'll change graphical or audio settings, and next time you log in, they'll be back to default. This problem has been limited, except for one thing, in which whenever I start the game up, it goes back into full screen mode, and I do not know how to make it windowed by default. I have to switch it every time. That might just be an issue on my end, I'm not quite sure about that yet. I still need to check that out. With all that said, nothing seems to be game-breaking, although I have noticed one little hack that I saw only once, in which someone was running around at extremely high speeds, killing everyone. But I saw that once, and the guy was getting kicked, and there is a good kick system to kick people out when they are abusing the game, so you shouldn't have too much to worry about. There's a few little things left that I really like about the game, such as the way the game goes into a nice spectator mode when you die. It can almost be as much fun to watch a big battle go down as it is to be part of one. Another thing I really enjoy in the game is friendly fire. I hate when games just make it so you can shoot your friend and he'll be fine. It's kind of good when you're friendly for some ways, but it's just the most immersion breaking thing in the world. I'm not someone to go into what's immersion breaking usually, but if anything is, it is that. And it's good, especially in a medieval setting, that they have friendly fire on and you can kill your teammates, although you should never do that on purpose in 99% of situations unless they're good friends of yours and you want to kick them off a cliff. Overall, Chivalry is a quality product for what it is and can be bought now for $25 or your regional equivalent. I'm really enjoying the game, so who would I recommend it to? Well, I'd recommend it to anyone who is a fan of the medieval setting, and to people who are fans of the FPS genre but want a little change. Honestly, if you want some meaty melee combat, then I have to recommend it. Personally, I think this is the perfect game for just blowing off some stress. It's not going to be the same for everyone, but with this kind of game, I can get in there, chop off some heads, get my head chopped off, and have a big smile on my face after. Does that make me a bad person? Anyway, I may post some more videos of Chivalry in the future, as I'm playing it a lot right now. If you'd like to see more, let me know, and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, guys. I've been MapleDungeons, and I'll see you next time.